Are you considering to move to Lagos, Nigeria for work, or have you already done the move and want to learn how to find the most suitable accommodation for your needs? Then this video is for you. My name is Manuel Marcel Mörner from Expat Korea, and I myself have lived in Lagos, Nigeria for 3 years. Before we dive into the housing topic, a couple of facts and figures about Lagos, Nigeria. So Lagos, Nigeria is located in the southwest of the country, quite close to Benin Republic, and located next to the Gulf of Guinea and in the Bight of Benin. So you also have a lagoon located right next to the city, or the city is built and further expanding around this lagoon, which is then exiting into the Atlantic Ocean. And in front of the Atlantic Ocean, you have a series of smaller islands, so-called barrier islands, which are mostly non-populated or sometimes populated with informal settlements. And then afterwards, you will have the mainland area of the city. And Lagos is a huge city. It has 23 million inhabitants, and it's forecast to become one of the first cities to hit 100 million inhabitants. It's an absolute crazy place. Crazy both in the good as well as in the bad aspects of it. And how did Lagos got his name? So, as you know, the Portuguese were quite famous in exploration, in trading, as well as also colonization in the early 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. So Lagos, there are two major theories how Lagos got his name. The first one is that a Portuguese wayfarer, a Portuguese explorer named Rui de Sequeira came to Lagos in 1472, and then he gave the city the name Lago de Curamo. Lago de Curamo. That means Lake of Healing. And actually, when you look at the Yoruba tribe, who's the most dominant tribe in the southwest of the country, they still today, they call Lagos by its original name, Eko. And you will find, when you move there, you'll find a lot of Echo. There's a Hotel Echo Atlantic. There are a lot of names with Echo in it. And then you know, okay, that represents Lagos. Another theory is that one of the merchants or travelers from Portuguese actually named the city after its sister city, Lagos, which has been a very important port city for the Portuguese explorers in sad times. So now coming more to the housing, and most important with housing everywhere is location, location, location. And to know where the best location for you is, we have to first look at how is the city structured. And you have to understand that Lagos is more like many cities in one city-state than actually one big city. 23 million people, that is very, very big. And when you look at Lagos on a map, you can kind of see it as a big T on its head. So when you go down from the north, you will have the mainland. And then when you come towards the southern part, where actually the ocean begins, you will have the island area. An island area is not like an island that is separate from the mainland, but it's more like a peninsula. Right, a half island that is now connected, of course, with bridges, so you don't even see so much it's an island. But these are the two main differentiations. When people talk about, okay, where do you live? Usually you say, okay, I live mainland, or I live in the island area. So that's the first distinction you can make about Lagos. And in the mainland area, you have the international airport, Mohammed International Airport, located in the northern part. And you also have the former residential area from the former politicians before they moved to Abuja, before they actually moved the federal capital from Lagos to Abuja in 1991. You had also something called Ikeja GRA. GRA stands for Government restricted area. And this is still one of the better environments on the mainland. Usually you can say nowadays that the island is a little bit more posh, a little bit more prestigious than the mainland area. Still in the mainland, especially around GRA, you have good living conditions in GRA itself or just outside of GRA. For example, the Shonibari estate or the estate next to it, I forgot the name now, I will write it in here. We'll see it somewhere up there. So you will find some good housing there, both flats or furnished, semi-furnished flats, as well as complete villas if you come with a family. And most important, you have to see, where do you work? So will you work on the island area or will you work on the mainland area? And if you work on the mainland area, chances are quite high that you will work somewhere around Ikeja GA, because that's still also a commercial center around there. And you will find also some international companies have their local headquarters in that area, mostly coming from manufacturing and engineering background. So then you can really see, okay, that is a good reason to live close to work, especially if you say, okay, I don't always want to go out so much and enjoy the high life, the nightlife, which is mostly in the southern part of the city, although of course you also have a nightlife in other areas of the city, but you also have, as an expat, you have to see there are certain, let's say, certain nightlife or certain activities that are suited to you, and others where it's basically not suited. You will not find any fellow expats and you might not be safe. It's just not suited. You still have to consider that it is an emerging country. Formerly we were saying developing countries, so the discrepancies and the gap between rich and poor is very, very high. And there you have this very strong segregation between the different classes that you will find in the city. So for me personally, I would suggest, if you move, if you work on the mainland, then you can consider living on the mainland. But if you work on the island, there is no reason for you to live on the mainland. I mean, there's still budget that comes into play, but here also a tip: if you move to Lagos, Nigeria, make sure that your employer will cover your living expenses, because living in Nigeria, especially the housing, is extremely expensive. You would not have thought that if you come maybe from a Western country and move to Africa, that you would have a very expensive cost of living, but that's really the case in Lagos, Nigeria. And also, when you commute, it doesn't matter if you go from the island to the mainland or the other way around, you have to consider that most people live on the mainland because it's cheaper, but many still work on the island area. So in the morning when you travel, the daily commute, it's absolutely congested. So we are talking here, taking from the mainland to the island area in the morning as of 6 a.m. The major route, which is the third mainland bridge, is jammed. I have done it the other way around, from the island to the mainland, for 3 years, and you see it, right? You can go, if you go against traffic, free, right? It's still a big distance, maybe 18 kilometers, but you can go with a decent speed, and the rest is completely jammed. So here you can spend easily 2.5 hours per one way stuck in traffic. Lagos is infamous for its traffic, so location is the most important aspect when choosing where you want to live. So coming now back to the island area. So if you live, or if you work on the island, it makes sense to live on the island. And even if you work on the mainland, it also makes sense to live on the island, because there's just more going on, all the social activities, when you have international business associations, or most of your friends probably will live in the island area. So you can feel quite segmented, quite away from them if you opt to live on the mainland. So myself, I lived 1 year on the mainland and then 2 years on the island. While it was pretty convenient to sometimes just walk to my office from the mainland, I still decided to move, and I did not regret that move because it improved my social life by a lot. So when you look at the living areas in the island area, you will find mostly three main neighborhoods. First one is Victoria Island, second one is Ikoyi, third one is Lekki. Coming first to Victoria Island. Victoria Island is by now the commercial hub and the commercial center of Lagos. So there you will find a lot of companies, headquarters, banks, professional services, and you will also find entertainment, restaurants, nightlife. That will be all in Victoria Island. In Ikoyi, it's a residential area, the upscale residential area, where you find a lot of big estates, basically, which are which have a barrier towards it's a normal road, and it's the access is restricted. And then even in these estates themselves, you will live in a compound, which is again guarded and shielded from the outside. And last but not least, you have Lekki, which is a little bit outside towards the right side when you look onto the map, cross between the lagoon and the Atlantic Ocean. And Lekki is like the upscaling middle to upper middle class, and it's growing away from the city. So you have Lekki Phase 1, which is closer to Victoria Island. You have Lekki Phase 2, 3 and 4 and even further. And the closer you are to the city, of course, the more prestigious and also the more expensive housing becomes. Lekki is very, very nice to live in, have very nice housing. Also, if you're on a budget, you will find more attractive prices there. Of course, you will have, if you work on the island, you will go with traffic, so you will find a bit of traffic in the morning. If you work on the mainland, it does not really make sense to live in Lekki, to be honest. And it's really nice to live, but if you can afford it, I would definitely say live either in Victoria Island or in Ikoyi. That mostly depends on your living conditions as well as your preferences. So do you come alone or with a partner or with family? If you are alone and you want to live really close to where everything is happening, I would say look first to Victoria Islands. They have some nice residential areas, although most is commercial now, but some high-rise buildings with very good accommodation, of course, with a very good prices, not good price, a very high price as well. But that's the price you have to pay if you want to live right in the center. Now, it's bustling, so you don't have so many estates where you have nice amenities or where you can just take a peaceful walk outside. So if you are looking more towards that, look at Ikoyi. Ikoyi is a residential area. There are a couple of businesses as well, like Oracle and Microsoft and some major corporations, but it's still a residential area. And you have old Ikoyi. As I said, it was the first Ikoyi where you have a lot of villas, smaller villas, and then you have the estates, Parkview Estates, Dolphin Estate, or the most prestigious one, Banana Island, which is built, it's a very exclusive estate, very restricted in its access. It's built on a man-made sandbank, right? A reclaimed land, similar to Palm Jumeirah in Dubai. And here you can only access with one road. And Banana Island is the most prestigious environment. So if you say you live in Banana Island, everybody will, wow. So Banana Island is prestigious. If you come with a family and safety and convenience naturally is most important to you, Banana Island can be a very, very decent address to live at. If you come alone or as a couple, it's not always as good as the name might indicate. First of all, it's prone to flooding. Second of all, mostly families live there. So if you are single or you are a couple, it might be a little bit boring for you. Jetties where you can then take off and take your boat somewhere, which is also a very, very good mode of transportation in Lagos. And unrelated where you're living, if you can live with a jetty it will help you, especially, for example, if you work in Apapa, which is a port. Apapa is so congested and also dangerous. It's the best way to live somewhere where you have access to a jetty, and then if your company offers you a ride with or commute with a boat, this is ideal. So also an aspect to consider. And then, so coming back to Ikoyi, so there are other estates, like I live, for example, in Parkview Estate, which is one of the oldest estates and was the most prestigious one before Banana Island was constructed. And Parkview Estate is a nice estate. It also takes some time to get in, but it's not as rigorous as Banana Island. And it's a little bit closer towards the city or the rest of Ikoyi as well. And again, here you can take a walk in the estate, you can run if you like it. I mean, it always has a distinctive smell, right, from the gutters. All the gutters are just open next to the street, so I never enjoyed so much walking there. It was quite smelly, but hey, different people, different tastes. So for me, I would rather have lived not in an estate. Because I was there as alone, right, with not with family. So for me, it would be much easier to just be in a compound directly next to a main street, so I have easy access towards the city. In an estate, it always takes a little bit more time to get in and out, and there are a lot of bumpers on the road, so you can't drive fast, and it just takes additional 5 to 10 minutes to leave an estate. And then when you consider living in Parkview, you have to consider there are two areas in Parkview. One when you come into the left, one when you come into the right. So one is prone to flooding and one not. And the funny thing is that when you look at the real estate markets, you will even find differentiation. Okay, this house is for sale and located in Parkview non-flooding. And this one is, if it doesn't say non-flooding, most likely it's on the left-hand side and it's prone to flooding. And flooding can be very, very severe. So you want to be in an area where there's no flooding, because otherwise you might be stuck, and even with your car, it's not safe to go through because you will jam your engine and then the car is gone. And I lived on the right side of Parkview and I never had any challenges with flooding whatsoever. Then, of course, there are a lot of high-rise buildings as well, luxurious, prestigious high-rise buildings in Ikoyi, which are very nice to live in. If amenities are not so important, like, I don't know, tennis court, some come with tennis court, most of them come also with a pool. So there you can see what is most important to you. And many come also with a gym. Mine didn't have a good gym. I opted to just go for a regular gym with which iFitness. And I just enjoyed that I could work on the branches on the island as well as close to the office in Ikeja GA. But again, that is personal preference. Another important aspect to consider is that when you move into a house, you have to look out that it has ideally a BQ or 2 BQs. So that's called short abbreviation for boys quarter. So if you, for example, have a maid, or if you have a driver, they have to stay somewhere, and usually can use the BQs for that. And they are small rooms with their own small kitchen usually, and a toilet, a bathroom where the driver can stay or the maid can stay. Otherwise, you would have to find alternative accommodation for them, or you have a maid that even only comes during the day and doesn't live on site with you. Another aspect that you want to know is also the agents, right? Mostly you will work with agents finding your new apartment. And to be honest, bluntly said, the agents are mostly useless. Like, there's a trend in Lagos that everybody is calling themselves a real estate agent, and most of them have zero clue. They just bring you from one object to the other. They don't do a research. They do not usually understand what you're looking for and kind of guiding you. They just bring you from one to the other, like a mass tourism. And then there's another agent who is also on site, who then opens the door for you and just go in. So it's a little bit of a pain, it's a little bit of a hassle. So if you find something in the warm market, so off market, something through connections. I got, for example, my place, which I really begin to love so much, I found it on the warm market by just going to one event. And I met this real estate agent, and she actually said, okay, I have something, it's still off market, are you interested to look at? And I looked at and I fell immediately in love, and we made the deal, and then I moved in. Regarding the deal, it's usual that you have to pay, or you have to enter a contract and pay 1 to 2 years in advance. Yes, you're hearing correctly, 1 to 2 years in advance. So that can be quite a high number. That's also important that if you work for a company, that the company is covering this. Otherwise, you have to come up with an upfront investment, which can be quite substantial. And you're also completely at the mercy, more or less, of your landlord or landlady. So this is really, really tough. So you are really in a weak position. Once you have paid, right, if the landlord or landlady decides to cheat you on the utilities, if the roof is leaking, if the neighbors are super loud, if the neighbors are gangsters, if anything happens, the easiest way you can do is you just abandon and you write off the lost money and you move somewhere else. Because yes, you can go to court, but don't expect a normal court procedure that you are known from back home. It's mostly who pays the most will win the case. So if you want to focus on more positive things in your life, don't go this route. I will not recommend it. So better do your due diligence before. Ask around, how is this landlord, landlady, how is this agent, how they work. And then once you have a good feeling, then make the decision. And of course, there's always a little bit of luck involved. I was very lucky. I had 2 landlords or landladies, and both of them treated me fairly. Of course, you have sometimes differences in opinions, but in the end, I didn't got cheated, I didn't got ripped off. But I know people who have had utility bills of more than $1,000 per month, just additional expenses, and of course somebody is doing some trick there, and all they could do is basically move on and write off that money. Another important decision you have to take is if you prefer unfurnished, semi-furnished or fully furnished accommodation. The most prevalent option is the unfurnished ones, which of course comes with the advantage that you can design your house as you prefer. On the split side, you have to invest resources, meaning time and money to do so. Semi-furnished, you have a couple ones. So usually the apartments come with a kitchen, sometimes even with cabinets or walk-in cabinets. That makes things already a little bit easier. And then depending, you have some apartments which come with a little bit more of furnishings, and this I would categorize as semi-furnished. And then you have the fully furnished, which go from fully furnished but without, let's say, any necessities for daily life, like utensils, like pots and kitchen utensils. And then you have the fully furnished ones, which range from just fully furnished, basically furniture, to those who are often also providing kitchen utensils and other things you need in your daily life, like towels and linen and bed sheets and what's not. And these often also go in the direction of serviced apartments, where you often have the service also included in the package. Now, one thing you also have to consider when moving into a fully furnished, which was my option. I always prefer fully furnished because I do not have to invest any resources in furnishing, which makes me also very flexible when moving to a next assignment, when leaving the country, etc. If you have a lot of furnishings, a lot of assets, you have to sell them off, and mostly with a big loss. But now comes also the side, you have to find something that you like. You have to know how particular or peculiar you are with your taste. Usually I come in and I find something, and then I can like it usually if it's decent, and I can add a little bit of my own flavor to it. For example, some plants. And Nigerians are usually not so much into plants, and if you find a plant, it's mostly a fake plastic plant, which I would say is not so much my personal touch, but hey, different preferences. So there's also a specific Nigerian taste that is not always in alignment with what most Westerners might like or foreigners might like. So there's a lot of gold, there's a lot of what I at least personally would consider tacky, and it looks pretty much every furnished apartment looks similar. And these apartments also are sold as serviced apartments, right, for short let leasing. And the prices are really inflated. What means that you will, because they are rented out on short let, you will have a high yield, and usually they sell out for $200, $300, $400, $500, up to $1,000 per night. And usually a lot of people then rent them together, they have parties there, they make their Instagram worthy pictures, living a little bit the high life, escaping the hardship of everyday life, and then they move again to their normal residencies. So these kind of demand for this, or this market dynamics, they increase the prices. And when you come there and you want to find a long lease, then of course these prices are very high for the furnished apartments. Plus you might not really like the specific taste. I was very lucky because my landlady, she furnished it, and she is a foreigner, so she designed it and she has a very good feeling for an artistic feeling and interior design experience. So she made it in a way that I came in with a nice color scheme. I just loved it from the beginning, and I just added a little bit of my personal touch and details here and there, and then I felt completely at home. But for that, of course, you have to be a little bit lucky as well, and have to build your network, and maybe you find somebody that can supply you with something that also fits your needs and fits your preferences. And now also coming to pricing. I mentioned already before, Lagos is an expensive place to live. It's one of the most expensive places actually in Africa to live, often comes only second after Angola. So if you think you come to Africa, usually because most people have these kind of bias or prejudice that Africa is poor and because of that everything is cheap, no. Africa might be less developed, I wouldn't say poor, because the richness, especially in Lagos, is crazy. The gap is massive, but it is the subject of another video. So usually you might, or I also thought, okay, that might automatically translate into, okay, everything is cheap there, but no, it's not, because the average, let's say, living setup is not suited for you and me. Theoretically, you can live like the locals, but will that suit you in your everyday responsibilities to work and also to be safe, to provide a safe environment for your family? Most likely not. So there is this parallel market that is catered to expats as well as very rich and wealthy locals. And this market is completely inflated by the corporate packages, where the corporations just say, I'm very happy that I found somebody who is willing to relocate to Nigeria. And I just want to make sure that he or she and his or her family is safe. And if that costs a couple of $1,000 per month, so be it. And these kind of packages, they just inflate the prices. And there are these two markets, and they're completely decoupled from each other. One is the normal housing market, and one is these expat or wealthy Nigerian market, which is mostly around the island area and a little bit also in the most luxurious, prestigious area on the mainland. And often you will find a factor 10, even 20 between the prices on a similar level. And of course, some of the houses on a high level you only find on the island area. And so, just to give you a rough estimation, on the mainland, let's say Ikeja GRA, you will find probably an apartment, 2 or 3 bedroom for $2,500 per month. Maybe a little bit cheaper, a little bit higher, depends on how old it is, how good it is, etc. When you go to the island and you look for a villa, you would probably pay north of $4,000, $5,000 US per month. If you want to live in one of the most luxurious high-raised buildings in Ikoyi, that can usually be around 100,000 to 140,000 per annum rent. Right? It's not, you will not own the building with that price, it's rent. So you see, it's at some point it can even reach the levels of big metropolis like metropoles like New York or Hong Kong, and you would have never thought of that. So that is very important when you're negotiating your compensation package, that you are aware of these dynamics and these prices.